The village of Dalton is more than $3.5 million in the hole. Mayor Tiffany Henyard is accused of misusing money, and today she's nowhere to be found.
Very, very diligently, very hard under difficult circumstances to get as much information as we could to share with you.
She thinks she's going to jail. I'm also a former Cook County Sheriff for the Department of Corrections, and I suggest that she go and take a tour of that facility so she
Corruption in positions of authority is hardly a new phenomenon, but Mayor Tiffany Henyard has seemingly raised the stakes in a way that's attracting increasing scrutiny. With media and law enforcement now actively investigating her, Henyard is beginning to face the consequences of years spent evading accountability. She has employed a variety of tactics to stay one step ahead, but as the walls close in, nothing seems to be working in her favor. Henyard's ascent to power began when the Board of Trustees appointed her to fill the remaining term of the late Mayor Frank Zuccarelli. According to state election law, the Thornton Township Board had 60 days to appoint a successor, and multiple candidates were in the running. Joyce Washington, a longtime trustee, and Jerry Jones, a trustee and township assessor, were considered the frontrunners. However, as is often the case in politics, things didn't go according to plan. Despite Washington and Jones leading the field, the Board of Trustees failed to come to an agreement, and the decision dragged on with the deadline fast approaching. In a last-minute twist, it was revealed that Henyard, who had applied for the position earlier, was nominated by trustee Christopher Gonzalez. With the clock ticking down to midnight, Gonzalez's motion passed, and Henyard was sworn in as mayor, just before the deadline. Interestingly, Henyard had been excluded from the initial round of nominations, which raised some red flags. Gonzalez's nomination was a gamble, one that ultimately led to her appointment just to avoid leaving the decision to the public vote. At first, Henyard's public appearance as mayor seemed promising. She addressed the Board of Trustees with a speech expressing gratitude and vowing to work diligently for the people of Thornton Township. "I pledge to the residents of Thornton Township, the elected officials, the Board of Trustees, and the entire staff that we will work hard and have an honest and responsible fiscal year," she stated. "I am a public servant, and I will always put people first." For a brief period, everything appeared to be going smoothly, with Henyard's leadership seeming competent and her rhetoric focused on transparency and service. However, rumors soon emerged that Henyard held personal grudges against individuals close to the late Mayor Zuccarelli, particularly those who had supported him in his time of office. It was speculated that she felt threatened by those with long-standing ties to the position and was unwilling to accept help from those experienced figures. This suspicion began to show in her actions. Her first move as mayor was to suddenly and shockingly dismiss key employees, including Jessica Jones, without explanation. The decision to remove Jones was swift and unanimous, leaving many people caught off guard, including those who had supported her. Later that same day, Henyard made another bold move, firing Stephanie Weidman without any clear justification. The vote to remove Weidman was divided, with a 4-1 split, and Christopher Gonzalez was the only trustee to vote against it. The sudden terminations of two long-standing employees raised several questions. Why were they dismissed without warning? And why were the Board of Trustees, as well as the employees themselves, left in the dark? Despite the confusion and lack of transparency, no one, including the Board of Trustees, demanded an explanation from Henyard. The actions revealed the first cracks in her leadership. It appeared that her decisions were more motivated by personal insecurity than a true desire to serve the people of Thornton Township. Henyard had not been appointed due to her qualifications or experience, but as a result of political maneuvering within the Board of Trustees, who sought to avoid a public vote. As time went on, it became clear that Henyard's leadership style was more authoritarian than collaborative. Her decisions increasingly alienated key figures and removed experienced staff members without clear justification, which ultimately damaged public trust. As the investigation into her actions continues, it remains uncertain how long she will be able to hold on to her position. The walls may be closing in on Mayor Tiffany Henyard, and the political fallout from her decisions will likely leave a lasting impact on Thornton Township for years to come.
Have confidential, sensitive papers that were in a common area.
This morning, some of those documents were gone.
Tiffany Henyard's recent actions have sparked significant controversy and drawn intense scrutiny, with her attempts to defend herself only raising more questions. In a statement, Henyard argued that recent office rearrangements were necessary due to heat issues that hampered her ability to work efficiently. She dismissed objections from Assessor Elston, labeling them as an overreaction to trivial matters, and suggested that relocating the assessor's office was part of a broader initiative to improve citizen services. However, critics quickly pointed out the lack of official announcements or supporting documentation for such a move, raising suspicions that it might be a convenient excuse. Even some of her supporters have started to question her leadership. One member, speaking in defense of Henyard, revealed that she had never consulted with them on any major decisions. This vague defense quickly shifted the focus away from the ongoing controversy, as one ally suggested that local media should shift their attention from critical investigations to highlighting positive achievements, such as Thornton Township's receipt of the Government Finance Officers Association's Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. However, this attempt to pivot from criticism to praise fell flat with many residents, who felt that Henyard's leadership challenges couldn't be overlooked with claims of success. As public dissatisfaction grew, Henyard's responses to criticism took on an increasingly unusual tone, often laced with spiritual overtones and defensive posturing. Rumors about her perceived incompetence spread widely, adding to the tense atmosphere surrounding her administration. Rather than directly addressing the criticisms, her ally, Keith Freeman, adopted a more confrontational strategy, publicly accusing the media of unfairly focusing on negative stories while ignoring the township's supposed successes. His comments were marked by a condescending tone, as he argued that the people of Thornton Township would be better served hearing about the township's accomplishments rather than the petty gossip surrounding Henyard's leadership. He dismissed critical reporting as kid stuff and challenged people to verify his numbers, asserting that the township's financial reporting would demonstrate the administration's competence. Freeman's remarks highlighted a growing defensiveness within Henyard's team, who began framing her struggles as part of a divine plan. This rhetoric positioned her as a righteous figure enduring hardship with strength and resilience. Freeman even went so far as to say, "God doesn't make mistakes. He put the right person here who knew would do the work, take the lashes, and have the strength to endure it all." This framing portrayed Henyard's position as one of virtuous endurance against unfounded attacks, but many residents saw it as an attempt to deflect from growing concerns about her leadership. As public pressure mounted, Henyard adopted a new tactic to manage her image. She began hosting private meetings and limiting media access. When reporters were eventually allowed into some of these meetings, they noticed a troubling pattern. Henyard would abruptly end the sessions as soon as the media arrived, creating the impression that she was intentionally avoiding accountability. This move only fueled further speculation about her leadership style and whether she was actively hiding from public scrutiny. Meanwhile, tensions within the township office remained high. Freeman doubled down on his defense of Henyard, insisting that no wrongdoing had occurred and blaming the media for focusing on the mess and gossip instead of more substantial matters. He even implied that critics of Henyard's leadership were either misinformed or maliciously attacking the administration without cause. To quell concerns, Freeman offered photo documentation to verify that no files or sensitive materials had been mishandled during the office reshuffle. However, these offers did little to address the core complaints of residents, who felt that Henyard's administration was more focused on optics than effective governance. The most dramatic shift in Henyard's response to public disapproval came when she began framing her challenges as a spiritual battle. She portrayed herself as a virtuous figure engaged in a fight against unseen adversaries, suggesting that she was a beacon of good working to fend off evil forces seeking to tarnish her reputation. Her rhetoric became increasingly spiritual, with her team subtly positioning her struggles as personal, not just political. They suggested that her critics were part of a larger effort to dismantle the positive work she claimed to be doing for the community. This shift in tone seemed less about addressing governance issues and more about redirecting public perception. Henyard began to position herself as a martyr, enduring hardships with grace, patience, and
bald-faced example of Supervisor Henyard's promise of come to the good things. There's so much good going on that we want to tell you about. When we show up to report on it, we were denied access.
So that's what happened to our reporter, and then at the next meeting that you attended, we heard that.
Tiffany Henyard's tenure as mayor of Dalton and supervisor of Thornton Township has quickly devolved into a series of damaging legal and political scandals, each more concerning than the last. From her controversial leadership style to accusations of financial misconduct, her administration has been plagued by multiple legal battles, growing public discontent, and a rising number of allegations portraying her as ineffective and self-serving. The drama surrounding Henyard reached new heights as insiders and residents alike began to speak out about her questionable actions and decisions. Tensions within Henyard's leadership became apparent early on, particularly in her strained relationship with the Dalton trustees. One of her early supporters, Trustee Gonzalez, who had nominated Henyard, was among the first to publicly express disappointment. He recalled that from her first day in office, Henyard acted as though she was the sole authority in the room. "What are they going to think now? What are they going to say now?" Gonzalez recalled, referring to her interactions with the trustees. The rift between Henyard and her colleagues only deepened as the year went on, with many becoming increasingly disillusioned with her leadership style. Her first year in office was marked by a series of controversies, some of which grew more problematic over time. Among the issues raised were the hiring of an inspector who wasn't properly vetted, the alleged misuse of taxpayer funds without board approval, and the use of Dalton police officers for personal security. These issues raised concerns that Henyard was putting the township at risk by failing to follow proper procedures. The Dalton community found itself grappling with the consequences of what they saw as failed leadership. The situation came to a head during an annual meeting when a 23-year-old resident from South Holland publicly urged township leaders to take actions in good faith and make information readily available to the public. "You claim you want us to participate in civic affairs, but based on my first meeting in Thornton Township, it appears that some actions are being taken against the interests of the township's residents," she said, putting Henyard on the spot. Another resident, G.S. Watts, voiced concerns over Henyard's handling of the voters' decision to reject a mental health referendum that would have raised taxes in the township. He added, "This is not an attack on you as a Black woman. I've always been held accountable for my performance, and I expect the same from you. We are not brainwashed. We're tired." This confrontation marked the beginning of a series of public grievances that Henyard struggled to address. Former supporters, like resident Trina Diaz, began to speak out as well, citing what she saw as mismanagement. She pointed to issues like being barred from attending a Dalton board meeting and allegations of misconduct during official trips. Diaz also accused trustee Andrew Holmes of being complicit in some of the questionable actions. Nate Fields, photographer from South Holland who worked with Thornton Township, also came forward with complaints, recounting a conversation where Henyard had promised him support following the death of Frank Zucchi, only to later fire him without explanation. Field's story became part of a growing list of accusations against Henyard, with one staffer even alleging that the mayor had used intimidation tactics to silence workers. The staffer claimed that Tiffany had relied on other men to intimidate employees, creating an atmosphere of fear and distress within the township office. As the criticism mounted, Henyard's legal troubles only intensified. Lawsuits against her administration piled up, with claims ranging from wrongful termination to favoritism and unfair practices. Among the most notable legal battles she faced was a lawsuit filed by a Dalton police officer who had been part of Henyard's security detail. The lawsuit named both Henyard and Trustee Holmes as defendants. Another lawsuit, filed by former maintenance manager Dwayne Thrash, accused Tiffany of violating his constitutional rights after he refused to participate in a scheme to replace the school board's attorney with a law firm, handpicked by the mayor's inner circle. After rejecting the plan, Thrash claimed he was abruptly fired while on an approved vacation. These lawsuits were only the beginning. As the legal drama continued to unfold, Tiffany came under federal scrutiny. Investigations revealed that she had allegedly used government funds for lavish personal expenses, including expensive meals and frequent hotel stays. One of the most troubling aspects of the allegations was that Tiffany had spent nearly $900,000 in taxpayer dollars on travel over 2 years, including first-class airfare and luxury hotel stays at places like the Four Seasons in Atlanta and the Marquis in New York City. Tiffany's trips to Las Vegas also raised questions.